Okay, let's start with some short questions to kick us off this evening session. So which of the following fractions is smaller than 7 out of 8? 7 out of 8. So how do we make that comparison? Okay, just one or two very short steps will do, and we'll get the answer. Okay. Which one do you think is smaller than 7 out of 8? Okay, so we need to make something the same in order for us to directly make the comparison, right? So anybody would like to just give us the steps? Just a one or two liner description. Anybody before we check it out? Nobody? Okay, let's start cool first. Okay, yes, Gordon, yes, you'd like to help us? Yes, please.
Technically, you can just do 7, 8, and then 7, 8 equals to 14 over 16.
Okay.
So B, since obviously this is not, and you have two options, just simple.
Very good. I like your method as well. Okay, so you do by elimination since there are only two options. Thank you. All right. Anybody else have a direct way? A more direct way, I mean. Okay, so we can actually find the equivalent fraction. Okay, so as what Gordon said, it is definitely wrong. So B must be the answer, but why is B the answer? We can also find the equivalent fraction of 7 out of 8, which is 21 out of 24. Okay. Yes, so this is our warm-up question. Let's have another one or two warm-up questions, shall we? Now, this time, which fraction is the largest? Okay, anybody else would like to share with us your method or a quick method that you could do to make the direct comparison? Do you even need to make any changes? What do you think? Besides Gordon, let's give others a chance to say something if you want to. Anybody?
No.
Akil, do you want to say something?
Yes.
Oh, Tanish. Oh, okay. I saw Tanishka raise her hand as well. Okay, never mind. You're Akil, right? Did I read your name correctly?
Yeah.
Okay, yes, please go ahead, Akil. What will you do?
Because the numerators are all the same, so you just have to look at the denominator, and the smaller denominator, the bigger the fraction.
Thank you very much, Akil. I heard that loud and clear. So he actually just directly made the comparison. Okay, since the numerators are all one, so we call this unit fractions. So the largest fraction will have the smallest denominator. Is the opposite if you're comparing the denominators. Okay, thank you, Akil. Okay, so Liana also typed in the chat box. Thank you, Liana. If three fractions have the same numerator, yeah, exactly as what Akil mentioned. Thank you very much. Okay, all right. So I believe that's what Tanishka you wanted to say as well. Okay, thank you. Okay, so you can also compare it in other ways because as you can see, 1 out of 8 and 1 out of 12 are both smaller than half as what you see in the slides. Okay, all the methods which you all use, I also had that idea as well because all of them are all unit fractions, same numerator. Just compare the denominators. Okay. Arranging the fractions in order. All right. So let's see. Zihao and Tianxin, how would you like to say something, or would you like to type it in the chat box if you are shy to say it's okay? So how do we get this arranged in decreasing order? Yes, I saw Tanishka. Okay, Tanishka, you want to say first? Okay.
For fractions with the same numerator, the greater the denominator, the smaller the value of fractions in decreasing order.
Okay, all right. So in this case, okay, I see Zihao's answer as well. Thank you. So do you catch what Tanishka mentioned? Okay, so very similar to the previous question. It's just that this time, all right, our numerators and denominators are not the same. So you got to do a little bit of more work to convert them. All right. But I can see one of the fractions is obviously the smallest. All right. Do you all notice that 3 out of 4 is the only fraction that is less than 1 whole? Right. Okay. All Right, thanks, Zihao and Tianxin. I saw what you have written in the chat message. Thank you very much. Okay, so Zihao gave the answer. All right, well, Tianxin mentioned to make the denominators equal, right? Very good. Okay, so actually you can select whether you want to make the denominators or numerators the same, as long as you are very clear what you're comparing. Okay, so for me, I put 3 out of 4 as the smallest because, as mentioned, it is the only fraction that's less than 1 whole. Okay, as for the comparison between 5/3 and 1.5, 5/3 will be slightly larger because 5/3 is 1 whole and 2/3. So 2/3 is greater than half. That's why I know that will be the greatest among them all. Okay. Okay, so they'll do something like this, or you want to can make the denominator the same, like what Tianxin mentioned in the chat. Or you can also do like what Tanishka mentioned, all right, to make the comparison. Okay, I believe you said you want to make some comparisons as well, right? Okay. All right. So yeah, everybody has contributed already from the first 3 questions. Thank you very much. Okay, I think there's 1 or 2 more warm-up questions. This is also a warm-up question, all right, before we come to the long word problems later on. Okay, let's see this one. We are going to find the fraction which is the closest to 1. What is the meaning of closest to 1? What do we need to look out for? What do we need to do to see that it is closest to 1? Anybody like to write in the chat box or like to say it out or anything? Raise your hand or just directly type, anybody? Since everybody has already contributed one way or another, how do we know? Because it doesn't mean to say that it's greater than 1 or less than 1 means it's closest to 1. So we need to find the what that tells us it is the closest to 1. Okay, Tanishka showed me subtraction. Okay. Yes, that is one thing you got to do. In fact, we got to check for all of them. All right, we need to find out how far. But if you notice, the difference between the numerator and denominator for all the 4 fractions is just a 1, right? Okay. So, Gordon wants to convert to decimal. Okay, that's one way. But I don't think it's necessary. We can use a method which was the same as one of your, I can't remember who mentioned the common denominator. Sorry, not common numerator. I think it was it RQ or? Yeah, let's see. Oh, I see some answers in the chat box. Let me see. Oh, okay. It's okay. We'll look at it in a moment. Liana says 6 out of 7. Okay. Yeah, right. That's the answer. But why is that the answer? Anybody can explain? Okay, RQ put 7 out of 6. Tianxin wants to make the denominators equal again. Of course, you make the denominators equal again. You can do that, but not necessary. There's a very fast way to do it. Let's see who can give us the fastest way, since all of us already know what we could do, right? Okay, Tanishka. Okay, Tanishka, I believe you wanted to find all of them, right? By finding all the difference. Okay, good, that's possible. But let's see who has given me the answer that I'm looking for. Okay, by the way, the answer is 6 out of 7, right? So shall we look at it as why? Why that is the answer, and how can we get it out without actually doing any much calculation? All right. Akil suggests to draw out a pizza and cut it. Okay, I think that's also one way. Okay, because you like to visualize the parts, right? Okay. Okay, let's see. Now we find what we call the gap. So actually what I want to hear from you is the difference. So actually Tanishka showed me as in she typed out by saying to find, by subtracting, okay, from 1 whole, or you take 1, subtract the fraction if it is smaller than 1. Okay, so that what we're finding is the difference from 1, or the gap, as you can see from the screen. Okay, so what you can see from the gap, okay, as you can see for 5 out of 4, the difference is 1 out of 4. The gap is 1 out of 4. I mentioned something just now. If you all caught what I said, the difference between the numerator and denominator for all these 4 fractions, do you all notice it's just 1? 7 minus 6 is 1, 5 minus 4 is 1, and so on, right? So which gap will give you the largest denominator? Which gap will give you the largest denominator? Can you see it directly? Okay, I will press out all the 4 gaps and you can see for yourself. The closest to 1 will have the smallest gap. Is that right? So to get the smallest gap, what must be the largest or the smallest? If you want the smallest gap, remember the denominator will be the largest. Is that right? Therefore, the answer is 6 out of 7. Okay. Yeah, so actually we do not need to do all the calculations. If you can see, but if you can't see or if you're not so sure, it's okay. You can just work out the gaps, as you can see from all the 4 fractions. All right. Yes, the above numerators are the same. The numerators that you're referring to is of the gaps. Okay, very good, Liana. Okay. Yeah, this is one of the questions that they always like to ask in the short answer section. All right, so you can see when you're comparing the fraction, make sure you know what you're comparing. Are you comparing the numerator or denominator? So in this case, since all the numerators are the same, the denominator is what you're comparing. So as mentioned earlier, the larger the denominator, the smaller the fraction. Is that okay? Anybody has any thing to clarify about this? Is this okay? Because I see everybody has contributed something to it. So yeah, I believe you're all in tune with this idea here. Okay. All right, so I shall move on. Same idea, but this time a little bit more work because as you can see, the fractions that we have this time are a little bit different. But let's see if the answer is obvious. I think the answer is obvious as well this time. Yes, that's right. Okay, thanks, Liana. We can eliminate 1 and 2 as what Liana mentioned. Okay, so it has to be either option C or option D. Okay, yes. Thank you, Liana. Very, very clear cut. Okay, Tianxin, thank you for the answer as well. Okay. All right, so how do you all know how to apply the idea that we talked about in question 4? Or does anybody would like me to explain again? If you need, please let me know. Don't worry. Okay, so as mentioned, C and D will be one of these 2 fractions because as you can see, it is the closest to 1. But which is closer to 1? We'll have to do a very quick check, right? A and B is definitely wrong because they're very far away from 1. We want the closest to 1. Huh? Okay. So now let's see. The difference or the gap, as you saw earlier. Okay, so we find the gap. So for C, the gap is 1/6. For D, the gap is 1/7. So if you want the smallest gap, you have to select the larger denominator, right? Okay. Yes, that's right, Tanishka. If the numerators are the same, the fraction of the larger denominator has a smaller value. Very good. So you're catching it up. Great. Okay. How about you, Zihao? Do you have anything you'd like to clarify? Is it okay? No? Thank you. Very good. Okay, so the rest will have typed something to the chat box. Yeah, I think that's good. How about you, Akil? After you answered the question just now, how do you find this one? Is it okay? Good.
Yeah.
All right, great. Nice to hear from everybody. Okay, so the answer is D, as what your mentioned.